You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I've brought on a coaching colleague to talk about, honestly, a couple of different things and how they all relate back to you being the leader of your life. Kind of like how I talked to you about how confidence shows up in multiple different facets of your life, today's topic is how leadership does the same thing. So, who better to bring on than a leadership coach? And if you want help being the leader of your life when it comes to making friends, then it's time for you to head to the show notes or to justdiamondcoaching.com/friends and get yourself signed up for my next workshop called Find My Friends. I'm going to be teaching you 3 tips you need to move an acquaintance to a good friend, because meeting people is easy. Meeting your people, that's where it gets tricky, but it won't be anymore after you attend my free Zoom call that will be held on Wednesday, September 25th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, go to the show notes or to justdiamondcoaching.com/friends to sign up so that you can receive the Zoom link, the replay, and the worksheet so you can confidently make good friends in your 20s. And while you go sign up, I'm going to introduce who you'll be listening to today. Imagine living a life where self-prioritization isn't a luxury, but a necessity, where guilt and overwhelm take a backseat, and where thriving becomes your new normal. This is the world that transformational speaker and certified leadership coach Laurie Schible is creating with high-achieving women and companies across the globe. She helps amplify their communication, connection, and confidence so they can make more, do less, and love the life they're living. From 20 years in corporate leadership to her own training in neuroscience, somatic bodywork, and in performing improv, Laurie combines all her experiences to help you create success on your terms and live a life you love. Hi, Laurie. Welcome to How to 20-something.
I have to tell you really quick, I'm super excited about your workshop. That's going to be amazing. So just a by the way, I'm going to sign up for that because it sounds awesome.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Now, we're going to just jump right into all the questions I have for you. And one of the things that I love about your messaging is that being a leader isn't necessarily a title or a position. Can you elaborate on how that mindset can apply to someone in their 20s?
Yes. Okay. So here's the deal. I think we have a perception of, when we think about what is a leader, we think about somebody has said name, CEO, director, executive, doctor, electrician, right? We perceive people who have labels or titles as the leader. And it's a great thing, right? There is a leadership component to that. And what I know about leadership is that we all, first of all, are leaders. And we all have the capability to step up and lead. And especially when you're in a team environment, but even in your community with your friends, wherever you are, there's always the opportunity to step up and be a leader. So I think the question you're asking is how? How do you do that?
Yeah. How do you do that? What does that look like? Anything.
Yeah. Okay. So I think developing your own skills, first of all, starts with being a leader of your own life. And when you really embody the skills of leading your own life, you naturally show up as a leader for other people. So one of the things you can do is actually think and act like a leader. And a lot of that is about ownership. So it's about ownership of your own choices, and it's also about making decisions. So you want to take ownership and responsibility for all of your choices in your life. The good, the bad, the ugly. Own it all. It's a part of you. And the process of doing that, first of all, you're going to learn. Hashtag we're human, right? So we're going to make mistakes along the way. We're going to have fantastic wins and everything in between. When we own all of it, our successes and our failures, that's taking true ownership over our life. And when we do that, it becomes very easy to show up as a leader. Another thing that we can do is get really good at making decisions. So, the best thing we can do, and this is the thing, by the way, too, that will paralyze us, right? Think about how often we're like, even the little things like, I can't decide what I want to have for dinner. Like, I don't know. Am I in the mood for sushi? Do I want Italian? I don't know. Somebody decide for me. All the things in our life, every area. So making decisions, that's a great practice to get in. And what I recommend is whatever decision you make, here's a little secret. We can never make a wrong decision in life because there really are no right answers, truthfully. Like when you really think about it, there are no right answers. So you get to just make the best decision for you, for whatever knowledge you have at that given point in time. And then this is the key. Have your back. Have your back for making that decision and make yourself right. Even if the decision you made leads to epic failure or success, it doesn't matter because the decision you made is now moving you forward and it's giving you an experience that you're learning from either way, right? So we're growing, we're evolving, we're moving forward. So the better you get at making decisions, the more of a natural leader you become, but the more you're also just showing up and leading yourself and also having agency over your own life. So those are a few of the like really key things. And part of that too, what you're doing is also taking responsibility then for your own growth. So you decide, you get on board, you are creating the space for your own growth, and you're doing it in your way, in a way that's most aligned to you because you're aligning to your own decisions versus following what everyone else is deciding and thinking and wanting to do. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said all of that because I agree. I think one of the things you were saying towards the tail end of all the greatness was that you made a decision based off of the information you had in that moment. And so many times, I know I'm guilty of this too, we get caught up berating our past self for a decision we made with the information we have today. But we didn't know it back then. So like, cut yourself some slack. You need to decide. And then part of all the decisions that is what you ended this conversation with was you're making decisions that align with yourself. You're not following the pack. And because you're not following the pack and you're staying true to your own values and to what you want and your goals and yourself, you're becoming the leader of your life.
Yes. And you get to be an advocate for what you want, right? That's so important too. Like you get to advocate and speak up for what you want. And part of that too, some of this is just like social conditioning, right? We're so used to like asking for permission. And when we're not sure, when we don't have all the answers and we're not really sure of direction, we tend to go to what the advisement of other people is or somebody who we perceive might have the answers, but they're not you. And when you can take it all in, but ultimately it's up to you to then turn inward and make the best decision for yourself and then really advocate for yourself. And part of that too, in that whole like the like social conditioning, we have been deeply conditioned to ask permission and seek validation, right? We want to get permission from somebody else to do the things we want to do in life because we've been trained, right? In school, like we're always raise your hand, Johnny, right? Like you got to ask permission before you can go do anything or use your voice or ask a question. So it's been really ingrained in our system. And we get to acknowledge that as adults, we have our own autonomy, our own capacity, and our own abilities. We have the brain power now, right? We have the wisdom to tap into ourselves and really decide for ourselves what is best for us. So we don't need permission, and we also don't need validation. It's another really big one, right? We're always like, it's the validation is almost second guessing ourselves. Like the validation that we made the right decision or that what we're doing is the right path. But again, we're the only ones that know that. And the sooner we recognize that and just practice that, the easier life gets, because now we're not expending so much mental and emotional energy wondering, like freaking out, like, is this okay? Is people going to think I'm weird? Is this crazy? It's like, no, it's my decision. Back to ownership. I own it. It's mine. Why? Because this is what is right for me. So that's
Yeah.
so big.
Yeah. And I think part of this is I want you to elaborate further on seeking validation versus bouncing off your ideas on someone else, on a friend, on a colleague, on another coach, on a mentor, whoever, on your mom, whoever it may be. Is like you want that extra bit of support. And I also think that's where something so special as coaching comes into the play of, yes, you're probably going to pick a coach who has been in your shoes to some extent. That doesn't mean you're following their exact path. They know how they got themselves out of it. They've made it into a system. But at the end of the day, we're going to turn it back onto you and have you come up with the answers. You're always going to hold those answers, and then we're going to support you through that decision.
Yeah. Here's the thing. When we are left with uncertainty, where we feel like we don't have all the answers, our brain loves to take us to a place of confusion. And our brain wants to offer up, because of how our brain works, right? It likes to have evidence and proof that something works, right? Because primarily it's like, nope, my job, our brain's job is to keep us alive. Not to think, it's actually to keep us alive. So its job is survival. So when we're looking to do something new or different, it's going to do everything, and it's going to be throwing us a whole bunch of really powerful thoughts, right? That are very convincing, by the way, that we should just stay put, or we should go ask our grandma or a mom or, our friend, or like, don't trust yourself. And so we get to be onto our brains. So it's okay if we want to go seek a mentor, seek a coach, and get insight. And the best thing we can do is take all that information in, distill it down, and then the crazy thing, right? This is crazy because we all live in our heads. Actually, like, get out of our head, drop into our heart, like drop into our body, and just ask ourselves, okay, what's the right path for me? What is the best thing? And if we are really stuck in a place where we're challenged to make that decision ourselves, you can actually like step into one. If you've got like two decisions, you can step into one and just feel it out. Like, okay, how would it be if this is the path, the choice that I made? How would it feel? And then step out of that and then step into the other decision and see what feels better. And it's another thing, we've been taught to think our way through life. But the crazy irony is, we're human beings, like, we're actually emotional beings. We actually make decisions based off of emotion, right? And we know that. I mean, how many times have we seen like a crazy commercial, right? Like, we think Nike Air, right? I'm like, they're shoes. But the way that they do it, it's so inspirational, right? It's like Michael Jordan, he's going in for the shot, and like it's this crazy thing, and they bring in the music, and like they're pulling your emotion into it, and you're like, oh my God, I have to have those. Totally emotional decision. So this is just important to know this about our own brains and how our brains operate and how we make decisions. So when it comes to seeking out support from others, like, take it in, get information, gather information. But I highly, highly encourage you to make the ultimate decision for yourself and trust yourself. It's the greatest practice in learning to trust yourself. Again, even if the decision was like, oh, whoops, that one didn't work, you still made the best decision you could, and you had that experience. And I guarantee you that experience is probably what you needed to get you to the next place that ultimately is getting you what you really want in your life.
Yeah. And I think it's all comes from thinking this decision through. You're not just making a decision on a whim, which is what you started to explain. And funny enough, I did a decision-making workshop, I think it was last year, and I had them do the exercise that you were talking about. So when Laurie said, step into that decision, I think you mean the same exercise, that we have the same training. So I'm pretty sure you mean the same exercise that I'm thinking of. Actually get up, stand up physically, envision 2 circles in front of you. And one circle on your right is going to be one decision. One circle on your left is going to be another. And physically step into that decision and imagine what else happens or how that decision plays out. Come back to your neutral ground and then step forward into that other decision. And your body's going to give you some kind of reaction. And that's you getting out of your head and getting into your heart. And I love that you mentioned trust with all of this, because I feel like that's a very key quality for someone to develop with themselves as they step into being a leader for their life or stepping into any leadership role. What are some other key qualities that someone can develop or focus on strengthening that will help them progress their own life or their own leadership capabilities?
Yeah. Well, I love on trust. I just want to add this too. If you can, the earlier that you can develop deep trust in yourself, like it just makes all the difference in the world for you, right? Because it makes decisions very easy. You have total ownership and power and agency over you. And I like to think about every time we make a decision and then we do have our own back for it, regardless of the result, we're adding deposits into our trust bank. But when we do something and then we falter or we fall out of our own word or we don't do the things we say we're going to do, we're actually like making withdrawals out of our trust bank. And it's creating a lack of trust, which is like an incongruency feeling inside our body. So that I've made this decision, this is what I'm going to do, and then we do what we say we're going to do, develops that trust. And it feels good because there's congruence between what we say, what we intend to do, and what we're actually doing. So I love that. Yeah. So trust is a really big thing. Other qualities that I think help you develop is a really big one is self-awareness. The more that you can just get to know you, the more you will understand how you operate, how you show up in the world, the easier it is for you to tune inward and to really check in and listen to your gut, understand what that feels like, and trust yourself, do all the things. So self-awareness is like step 1, right? We need to create the level of awareness to know what's happening in order to be able to develop these other things, right? And that part of that is understanding like, well, what are your strong points? What are your strong points and what are your weak points? And actually just acknowledging all of them and owning them. And you can develop both, right? I think you utilize your strong points. You can strengthen your weak points, right? Also, and you can really just lean into your strong points. So it's knowing both is the key, right? That's the first step of self-awareness. And it helps guide you when you're making decisions on career path or different things because you are very in tune with what your strengths are, what you love, what you don't love, what you're just so innately good at. It doesn't even feel like a strength. Those are the things that we want to learn too. That's all part of that self-awareness. Also understanding your own values. So when you understand your own core values, like what is it that really matters to you? Is it honesty? Is it family? Is it community? Like what are your core values? Because those are always running in our background. And typically if something either someone says or a situation you're in, if either don't jive with you, it's very likely because it's just butting up against a value and that's not jiving with your core value. So knowing that, having that own self-awareness around your core values, it can actually help you appreciate other people's points of view. It's like, oh yeah, well, okay, they just have a different perspective than me. I can appreciate that. I can honor that. Like, that's not for me, but I love that for you. Versus getting defensive and like, right, not being sure and like, oh, no, 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 no. I can't do that. Don't want to do that thing. It's like, oh no, I'm just clear. Like, these are my values. And I get you maybe have different values than me. So just having those different levels of self-awareness are so important. And another big thing is actually understanding your own brain. What thoughts is your brain offering you? The more awareness you can have around what thoughts are automatically being offered up to you, that is the main reason why we feel the way we do and why we're taking the actions and why we get the results we get in life. So having that awareness around how we're thinking is critical. And it also is like, if we are aware of what we're thinking, then we can become aware of why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And then we have the agency to shift it, right? So those are just some key things around self-awareness. Another big thing is emotional intelligence. And I liken this to, you get to actually just feel your own emotions, understand emotions, be okay being in the experience of them, good, bad, whatever. Because here's the truth, emotions aren't truly good or bad. Some feel better than others, absolutely. But emotions actually are just teachers. The way that we feel something, an emotion, all the emotions are, they're just our own guides to let us know how we are entering into a certain situation, right? It's a guide on, okay, I'm jiving here, I'm not jiving here, something's off. So when we pay attention to our emotions, they are our biggest teachers. So learning, like developing your emotional intelligence is really powerful. And when you do that, you also gain the quality of empathy. Empathy is it's underserved, right? I think we all kind of see in the world, we've all kind of gotten hardened. We're working very much like kind of in our masculine principles, like go hard, work hard. It's about goals. It's strategy is linear. And then we have this other side that's the whole human side. And part of that is empathy. And it's the missing link right now, right? In our society, like we're very disconnected. And when we have empathy, we automatically create human connection. And human connection is like the lifeblood of our human existence. We are all meant to be connected, right? We're like tribal by nature. We need to be connected. So learning that skill of empathy, literally, it makes you a better human, right? You develop better relationships. And it also helps you actually navigate conflict, managing challenging situations, move things forward because you are sensitive to what's actually going on for someone. So if somebody is not well, not aligning, not jiving with what you're saying, right? You can assess it, talk through it, and then move forward versus things festering, right? You know how it is when we don't communicate and we don't talk. And then I've got something in my mind I made up about what you're thinking. You've got your own thought. And now we're mad at each other for weeks. When we get back together and we're like, but I thought it was this. You're like, no, I didn't think that at all. We're like, oh. Where we could have just taken that moment, right? Acknowledge, like, something feels off about this, right? I'm sensing some tension here. Like, talk to me. Tell me more about this. And in 5 minutes, we can diffuse the whole thing, right? So empathy is really, really powerful. The other quality I think is really, really powerful is self-compassion. So we all judge. We all judge ourselves more harshly than anybody else on earth. And we all judge other people, right? If you're human, you're judging other people because that's how our brain works, right? We don't get away from it. And we also judge situations. So when we are judging, right, especially for ourselves, this is the really important thing. The best medicine that we can use is self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself compassion. And when you're judging yourself, you can actually just pause and just get curious about, okay, what are all these harsh feelings? Like, what's going on here? Let me just figure out like what's really going on here. Why am I feeling this way? And give yourself a big dose of compassion. Give yourself grace. Be in curiosity, like, oh, this is so interesting, right? That I'm so angry right now. Right? What is going on here? I'm really curious, like, what is actually happening that's causing me to feel so strongly, right? So, learning how to give yourself self compassion is so powerful. And I think it goes without saying, be a kind human. We need more kindness in the world. Be kind, right? Be kind to yourself first, then to other people. And you can be kind, yet very firm. You can be kind, yet own your boundaries. You can be kind and say no, right? That's a very big distinction. It's okay to be kind and also like still do what you want to do and make yourself a priority, own and hold your boundaries, and do all those things. So it's very important to learn that too about yourself, that you can be kind and also very firm. And the last thing I would say about that is to just be flexible. Be flexible, be adaptable. Right? If there's one thing that we've learned about this world and in our life, change is a constant. Situations never stop happening, right? Things that we unexpect come up, they happen. So when we can learn to be flexible and adaptable, it allows us to be open to so many more possibilities and opportunities. It's when we usually get down tunnel vision, right? Of like, no, 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 this is what I wanted and this is it, right? And we get really like rigid and firm. And we're like, no, actually, that's not even okay anymore. Like we need to actually adapt to doing something different now. And when we can do that, the more we practice that, we are also building our own resilience. And that allows us to really handle any situation that hits us in life.
Yeah, I love that all of the qualities you talked about. You talked about how they impact you as the individual and then how you can use it to strengthen relationships around you as well and I honestly, what comes up for me is the word tolerable. Be more tolerable of other humans around you. So I think we are the main characters of our own lives. I've been saying this for a while. It's a saying that's now within like the Gen Z millennial world. And it's true. We do think about ourselves. We think about ourselves a lot. We think about how we are better than someone else, or maybe we're worse than someone else. We think about how what we're doing right now might make us look like a fool, or what other people are thinking of us. And it all comes back to our own brains. And all of this, everything that Laurie just said, all comes back to what's going on inside your head and how what's going on inside your head is impacting your outlook and therefore your actions in your life. Because what you believe is what you're going to seek evidence for. So it's what you're going to see out in the world, which is then going to further strengthen that belief of whatever it may be. So for me, I know I have a habit of saying dating is hard. And one of my girlfriends told me to stop saying that. She's like, you're not allowed to say it's hard anymore. Say something else. Just say you're working on it or so. So she actually coached me around not having that mentality. And it's even the jokes that you say about yourself of like, oh, that was so dumb of me, like silly me. And it builds. You become a lot more judgmental on yourself instead of actually coming to yourself with that care and compassion that you were talking about. So all of that was so, so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love that. I love that about your dating life, right? It's like, oh, right. You need the reminder too. I'm like, one guess on how your dating life has been going up until then when you changed your mindset.
Yeah, we're still working on it. But that's the other part is all of these qualities are not just going to happen overnight. You're going to listen to this episode and you're probably going to mess up in an hour and say something harmful to yourself or rude to yourself. And just know, like, this is a practice. It is a skill and you have to strengthen it. So don't give up. Don't get discouraged if you find yourself being hard on yourself. Notice it and take it with, oh my God, I'm actually noticing it this time. So now I can course correct. Now I can change the language that I'm using to talk about myself or to talk about someone else or talk about a situation and make it better. Change the narrative around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's actually a practice that I use to help my clients like develop, to help them take charge of their life. So it is very exactly in line with what you're talking about. So I want to share this with you. Do you want to hear what this is?
I want to hear what this is.
Okay, awesome. All right. So this is a practice that, like what Jess and I have been talking about managing your mind and all of that. I've got a specific process that I follow. I did not make this up. I learned this, but it is one of the most valuable tools that I have in my tool bank that I teach every client that I have. And I often am using it in the background in my mind to assess what's going on with a client, right? So when I am observing a client and I'm in client mode, everything that is coming out of the client's mouth, I'm seeing as thoughts from their brain, and that everything they're saying is a story. And it helps me to see, okay, so what are the beliefs driving them? Like, what is driving them to believe this story? And that really helps to keep things clean and to help see what's going on and to question, like, okay, well, that's an interesting thought. What's having you think that? So the process that I use, so this is like the best thing that you can do is actually learn how to manage your thoughts daily. And this is a tool that you can use to manage your thoughts. It's called the thought model. And the essence of it is we all have situations in life. Okay. There's always circumstances. They never stop happening, right? Something always comes up. Something's always happening. Often it's not what we wanted to happen or not in the way. But the thing is, they're just situations and they're neutral. It's so important to recognize that the situation itself, it's neutral. The thought you have about it makes it mean something, because the thought you have about the situation or what somebody says, that is what your brain is telling yourself. It's what you're making the situation mean. So you assign it meaning. And this is so valuable because a lot of us are like, oh, well, if this person would just do this, or if this person would just, oh, if they would just like calm down, or if they would just do this way, right? Basically, what we're saying is if I could just change the way that person does something or control them, then we'd be great. But here's the reality. That's one thing that we are never in control of are other people, because we all have our own values, our own set of beliefs, and our own views and perspectives of the world, right? But what we do always have control over are our own thoughts. So here's the thought model. You have a situation. Immediately what happens is you have a thought about it. Now notice, you are making that thought up. It is just a thought. So a thought enters into your brain, right? So Jess, you might be hanging out with your friends and then you see somebody and you're like, "Oh, he's kind of cute." And then immediately your brain offers up to you, "Oh, but he's like way out of my league. Oh, he would never be interested in me," right? Thoughts. Thoughts are coming up. Here's this poor guy, right? He's neutral. He's neutral. He just walked by, owning his own business, right? Minding his own business. And then we had a thought about him and we made it mean something about him and about us. And as soon as we have that thought, then the thoughts are what make us feel everything we feel. It's not the person. It's not him. It's what we thought about him that makes us feel the way we feel, right? So let's say in that like totally made up scenario, right? It just is like, oh my God, he's so out of my league. I'm not good enough for him. He would never talk to me, right? All of those thoughts. She's probably going to have feelings of like heart palpitation and fear. Like, oh dear God, I like, please friends, don't cause a scene. Don't like bring him over, right? We're going to be scared. We're going to be like, there's no way I can't talk to him, right? Those thoughts are going to drive those feelings. And so in our thought model, we have our situation. Guy walks by. We have a thought, oh dear God, oh, not good enough, right? Some version of that drives these feelings of fear. And the next step in the thought model is based on this situation. We have a thought about it. It drives a feeling. The feeling is what causes us to take action or inaction. So let's say in this scenario, Jess's friends catch wind that she sees this guy and is interested, and one of them walks over to him. And suddenly Jess is under the table, hiding under the table, right? Her action is like, quick, hide, right?
Yeah, the fact that this has actually happened and recently.
That's this made up scenario even better. You're like, no, that was yesterday.
Well, so one of my girlfriends, Sam, you know her. The audience knows her because she was a guest not too long ago. She is that friend that if you're like, that guy's cute, she's like, oh, I'll go grab him for you. And without you being able to interfere at any moment, she's already across the room talking to him, and you just want to die. And it's not necessarily the thoughts, but
Sam. Yes, I totally get it. Yes. So imagine in this little thought model scenario how Jess felt when Sam's like, oh, I got you. I'm over here. I'm going to bring him right over to you, right? She'd probably like literally run and hide. That's the action, right?
Yep.
And then the result is probably like embarrassment for Jess, right? Probably not the best initial like introduction. Right. I mean, it's so in this scenario, like it's fun to just see, like you can take a really fun scenario and just see, like, here's how the thought model logistically operates in our life. So cute boy, had thoughts about him, felt a certain way, took a certain action that created this result in my life. Right. And so when Jess said, dating's hard, right? Now we can see why the result in Jess's life is that she believes, right? It's a reinforcement to her back to her brain. Dating's hard. Meanwhile, she's got her buddy Sam over here like, nothing, it's easy, right? But we can tell what Sam's thought model is about dating, right? Just by her response, feelings about it, and actions. So that is the best. It's one of the best tools you can use is the thought model, right? So you can take any situation, you just take the situation. What's the one primary thought you have about it? And how did it make you feel? And then list out all the actions that you took or didn't take, right? Because sometimes we take action. Sometimes we literally freeze. Like it's inaction that happens. And that's where our like reactions or responding comes into play is on that action line. And then what were the results that came out of that? And then what you can do is actually create a second thought model right alongside of that same situation, but then choose a thought that serves you. What thought would actually serve me in this? And then run the model. Well, how would I feel if that was the thought I was thinking? What actions would I take feeling that way, thinking that thought? And then what result would I get in my life? And when you actually practice this daily, watch your entire life change. It's that powerful.
So when you say to practice this daily, does that mean you have to catch yourself in the thought process first? Because you know how a lot of times, like I know I have affirmation practices, meditation practices in the mornings. This isn't one of those types of daily practices where I'm going through the motions, but it would be more so in real time while I catch myself having this thought. And it's like, wait, this happened. let me separate myself. It is a neutral situation that occurred. I'm adding the thought, what thought will serve me better? Is that correct? Like it has to be in the moment more?
It can happen both. And here's the
Ooh.
thing, when you first start practicing this goes back to levels of self-awareness. So as you gain levels of self-awareness, because you first have to get off of like, we are run 95% of our day, is run by our unconscious brain. We're not conscious to our thoughts. We're just running on automatic, right? Which is why we're just repeating the same thing that we did yesterday and last week and last year, rinse and repeat, because it's operating from that same set of beliefs, driving the same thoughts, doing it over and over. We have to create a conscious thought. We have to create conscious thinking in order to have the awareness around what's happening. So this is kind of like waking ourselves up and actually being the observer of how we're operating in our lives. So when you first start using this model, what most likely is going to happen is you're going to use it in hindsight. So let's say last week when that interaction happened with you and Sam, you would now today or that night or the next day, you would run a thought model on that. You'd go, okay, here was the situation. Here was the predominant thought in my head and the feeling I had and the action I took and the result. Now, how do I want that scenario to go? I don't want to be scared to talk to these guys. I want to feel comfortable and confident. So, what can I think instead, right? And this is where, like, when you think about this, you don't want it to be something that's total BS. Because if you go from like, I'm freaking scared to death, I'm literally going to hide under the table, to I'm going to stand up and confidently walk over and ask him out on a date. Like, there's probably some in between there. Like, your brain is going to call BS on you if you say that thought. So you have to think about, what thought can I truly like wrap my brain around that I could believe I could do, and choose that thought. Something that serves you, that will help you get the results or closer to the results that you want in that situation. Right? So that would be your first model is, I'm going to do a review of what happened. You're like, oh, this situation didn't go well. Let me run a thought model on this and actually see what happened. And then you can run a second thought model on, what thought would I like to think instead that will serve me and how it make me feel? What actions do I take and what results will I get? So that's what's happening at first. As you develop deeper levels of self-awareness, like now for me, I've been doing this work so long, there's a lot of times, and it doesn't happen, right? It's like, I would say maybe, I don't even know, 10%, 20% of the time I'm aware. And there's still a lot of the time I'm not aware in real time what's happening. I do it after. So when this happens to me in real time, it's almost like I'm kind of like outside of myself, being an observer of myself, watching this happen, where a situation will happen. I usually have an immediate reaction. Like, I just feel something. And then I'll immediately be in tune, because I'm like, oh, it jars me into my consciousness. Because now I've practiced this, like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And I'm immediately aware of like, all right, what am I thinking about this person, or what am I thinking about this situation right now? Like, okay, that makes total sense. Like, and this is all happening like really quickly in my brain in real time, right? Okay, this all makes sense right now. And as soon as I do that, when I actually can see, oh, this thought had just created this feeling that I don't like. Okay, well, I'm going to just at least let me choose a different thought. It may be just to be neutral. Okay, let me just listen neutrally without having any reaction. Let me just actually literally listen and lean in and hear them without a reaction. That might be my thought, right? So I can decide in real time, right, how I'm going to decide to think about that situation, which then changes the way I feel. And usually when we're in situations, it's like stress, everything kind of peaks, right? So when that's happening, I'm like having thoughts about getting myself at least back to neutral, if not back to calm. Because here's the reality: when we're in situations and our stress level peaks, right? Someone makes us angry and it's like in an instant, it's like, oh, right? Or we get overwhelmed or fear. We literally lose our minds. Like scientifically, our brains shut down and our primal survival brain turns on. So our higher level, higher conscious thinking literally shuts off. So, and you're like, you stand up and you're like, oh, I could do this. This is great. I have so much to say. And then you stand up in front of a crowd and you freeze and your mind just goes blank. That's exactly what's happening. So you can take a few breaths, calm your system back down, have a thought of like, I'm okay, I'm safe. And it'll reinforce the thought that you are okay, you're safe, you're calm. What that does is turns your higher level thinking back on. It re-engages it because you've like shut down the cortisol and the stress that just got like injected into your body by having those thoughts that were creating all of these really big emotions. So that's where this tool becomes really helpful when you practice it and when you become more and more aware that it can help you diffuse yourself in real situations in real time. Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'm so glad you asked that because both happen. And that's like what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think with all of this is we're talking a lot about how you can self-regulate, but we've also talked about control. And you can't control how someone else chooses to self-regulate. And I think that's where it comes back to being the leader of your life is knowing what do you have the power over, and it's yourself. It's nobody else. And following through and taking action according to that mentality and that thought process is what's going to allow you to stay aligned with yourself and to take charge. All that being said, I want to jump into something that you really help your clients with. And you work primarily with high achieving women, meaning they are probably balancing a lot of things in their life. How do you help your clients with work-life integration? And then how can a 20-something listening who feels like they have no time in their life anymore now that they have a full-time job begin to incorporate this integration?
So this tool actually, remember how it helps bring your stress level down? This tool is so valuable for you because here's what happens. We get overwhelmed, right? Life comes at us and we start to, like a lot of things that I hear, I overbook myself. I don't have enough time in the day to get everything that I need done, right? It's easy to fall into that trap because again, society in our country specifically, right? Capitalist, which gives us so much opportunity, an endless opportunity upward. And with that comes a lot of that pressure that's been created of this belief over many, many years, really for like the last 100 years since the Industrial Revolution. We have created this element of trading our time for money and having to work really hard to work our way to end up creating results and success, starting somewhere and working our way up. So all of those things, they're just thoughts. They're things that society has created for us. And a lot of it has created this feeling of like, I have to do it all. I have to do it all now. And I also have to do it really well. So we lean into like perfectionism because we've taught it's like never good enough. And then we have also, because we've been taught, well, you got to be nice, got to be kind, right? Got to be everybody got to be okay, right? So then we start to people please, right? Everybody okay? Everybody okay? And then all the force of like the hard work and working yourself up, and well, it's endless. So the harder where you work, the more you hustle, the more you can create, which creates this level of hyper achievement. So we have all of these things combined that is creating a lot of what has us feel really unbalanced. And balancing, if you will, is really just an integration of our work and our life. It's actually just how do we operate everything that we do in a day. And what's so important is how can we really look at creating more spaciousness for ourselves in our calendars because we're so busy. We're so caught up in technology. We're consuming massive amounts of information, like way more information in one day than like the amount of information that's in front of us in one day is like what a typical person would consume maybe 20, 25 years ago in a week or maybe even a month. Like it's astounding that and I can't remember what the stats are, but it is astounding to my brain to like just recognize how much we're sheerly consuming in a day. So that's very mentally exhausting and becomes emotionally taxing too, right? Because we're having thoughts about it, create the emotions. So it helps us make sense of like why we feel kind of so drained of energy and like we're always trying to keep up and trying to get there. So we get to decide to create the space and how much we get to do in a day or not do. We get to decide our own process and our own path. And really, hard work and hustle, like that's another thing to just assess with this, right? When you feel like, how do we integrate all of this into our life and on our work? There are going to be periods of our life where we're just going to be in that, right? Like we're going to just be in hustle, even though like hustle behavior is almost like we're catching up. It's hustle energy kind of comes from a lack. It's like I'm behind and I have to work really hard in order to get something. And so we're constantly like reaching, striving, and like we can never quite get there. It's very like a kind of a lack feeling and also like a desperation and I've got to do it. And it overrides our nervous system instead of us really listening. And sometimes we're in that, right? It's like no judgment on that. Sometimes we all just end up in a hustle space in different seasons of our life and our businesses and our, and our work. It's important for us to recognize it though, because it's very unsustainable. Hustling is the quickest path to burnout. And there is actually a distinction between hard work and hustle. Hustle, we're draining ourselves constantly. Hard work is a little different. And I can give you an example. Like I've had some, like when I'm creating programs or doing certain things in my own day in my business, there are things where I might work a 12 or 13-hour day because I have clients and then I'm building a program and then I have a networking thing or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I'm so energized. I was like working hard all day, but what I was doing was filling me up. Like I'm getting energy from that. So it's okay to work hard, right? And we're going to have those periods and we can work really hard doing what we're doing and we really get to tune in and listen to our bodies. We get to understand like what's my capacity level, right? I think of like a gas meter. Like what's my capacity meter telling me today? Maybe we didn't sleep well the night before. We have something really personal that's heavy that's weighing on us and it's taking a lot of emotional energy. Like we get to again like get out of our head and tune into our body and really tune into like what is my capacity? And here's the thing. This is the thing that will always have you in your own power is having that self-awareness and knowing it is your power because it gives you choice. When we're hustling, we are just in it and we can never catch up and we're going crazy, crazy, crazy. We're not aware. We're going like way beyond our capacity level, right? And when we do it over and over, it never ends well for us. When we are aware, we might still choose to double down and go, but we have an awareness around it. We're in tune, but we're at choice. We're making that choice. We're not taking societal pressures or the fact that we think we have to perfect it or this hyperachievement or this people pleasing, right? We're making the choice. That is what will hold your agency over your own life and help you be the leader of your life more than anything. And I think the other biggest thing, well, there's a couple things in this. Another thing is to not worry, right? Think about how much time we spend worrying. This is like future thinking, right? The worry.
Easier said than done.
Oh my God, right? Is it going to do? Is it going to happen? Is it not? Is he going to say? Not going to say? All this future thought. It is the most draining nonsense because 99.9% of the things we worry about never happen anyway. and knock it off, knock off the worry. And the way you can do that is let's stop taking everything so seriously. Let's remember to play, right? This is where like improv, so I perform improv in my life, and it has been the best teacher in life for me to remember to play. And when we're kids and we're young, we don't have that level. We're always in this high creative state. We're always taking care of our needs. And ironically, we're constantly emotionally regulating ourselves. The reason kids have tantrums is they need to release something. There's a big emotion, and that's their method to release it, or why they'll cry at the drop of a hat. Because like, think about it, and they cry for 2 minutes, and then they're running and laughing and playing with their best friend again. They just had to release something. So we all have the ability to regulate our emotions at any point in time. But as we get older and we get responsibilities and society really kind of takes its space up in our head, right? We tend to stop listening and we shut that down. And then we think, oh, it's not appropriate. Oh, it's not okay to cry. It's not okay to show emotions. Oh, if I'm loud, I'm being hysterical. Oh, if I'm too quiet, just sitting here because I'm having a down day, well, I'm not confident. I'm not speaking up, right? They're all just things that society has told us. So we get to decide what to do at any given point in time, right? When we just allow ourselves to approach everything with curiosity, fun, and play, holy cow, how much more energy do you have in your life, right? Yes. So very, very important. And the last thing I will say about that is really always think about in your schedule, in your life, in your day, what can you remove and what can you just simply let go of? And that will free back up hours of your day every day and give you back so much mental and emotional energy.
I like that this all kind of went full circle. We started the conversation with how being leader of your own life is making decisions that are aligning with you and the choices you make and the control you have over it. And it just kind of all came back in again for inviting that play and the power of play, the power of being decisive in your life, the power of staying true to yourself is all what's going to help you live your best life, which is Laurie's main message, is that's what she wants to help people do. Like, why would you want to live a crappy life? I don't think anyone wants to live a crappy life. So it's just nice that it kind of all came back together. Really quickly, as we wrap up today's episode, can you just walk us through your process that you help your clients with and how it can help my listeners set themselves up for the decades to come? Before you do, I think a large part of the self-doubt and the indecisiveness that comes with our 20s is that fear of the decisions we make today is gonna screw up our future decisions or screw up some future version of ourselves. So you go into not making anything. But I want to hear your process. So how do you help your clients just be successful with their lives?
Yeah, really everything we talked about, like that basis of if you can manage your own mind, then you can manage your own emotions. And then literally you can create anything you want in your life. It truly, truly is that powerful. So it's possible for us to make our significant impact in this world and really make a difference without sacrificing our own health, our own wealth, right? When we have agency and we have power over us, and to remember that we always have agency over our own thoughts, which is what is driving all of the actions and the results that we're creating or not creating in our life. And that's the biggest thing that you can remember. And the other piece that I would say to that is like, remember to be a good human, right? In our world right now, we're disconnected. And even the most simple connection, like smiling at somebody as you're passing them by on the sidewalk, as simple as that act is, that could literally make a profound difference to that person because you never know what they're going through. So that empathy, creating human connection is the evolution for us to bring it back full circle. That makes you a good human. You will create an incredible community and incredible relationships if you are a good human first. And when you learn to manage your mind and manage your emotions, now you are super regulated and you can literally create anything that you want in your life. Done.
It's all mindset. It's all in your head.
Yes, it really is. It's all in your head, right? So we get to take back our brains. Let's do this.
Yes. All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Laurie, for all of this valuable information. I just loved this conversation. And so thank you for being a guest on How to 20-something. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch or if they want to see your content, think about working with you? How can people find you?
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook. So it's easy because it's my name, Laurie Alphabet Schible. So if you type in Laurie Alphabet, you're going to find me. I'm the only alphabet out there. I also am on LinkedIn under my name, Laurie Schible. And I'm on Instagram as well under Laurie Schible Coaching. So basically, if you type my name into Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, you can find me. And I really, really message me, say hi, let's start a conversation. Let me see how I can help you out in the world, help you network, help you really get to where you want to be. And I love meeting other amazing humans. So please reach out and connect, say hi. If there's anything I can do to support, I'm here.
And all of her information will be linked in the show notes for you to immediately access. So you don't even have to type in her name and figure out how to spell it either, because we've got some hidden vowels in there. But otherwise, so go check the show notes right now so that you can get in contact with Laurie, because she's an incredible human. And I think having her in your life will make you that much more of an incredible human. So this does conclude another episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, if you know someone who needs to hear this podcast, then please pass it along. Share it on social media and tag me and Laurie when you do. Text it to your cousin, your best friend, your roommate, whomever. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.